Something happened to me recently, and I realized it might be useful to share. As I mentioned in a previous video, the charge from a narcissistic attack I went through has not fully cleared. What I understand now is that I am in a narcissistic abuse syndrome, something I have actually been in for many years already. Some of it did clear, but this kind of state works in layers. There is a bigger pattern, and within it, smaller waves. It's like a mountain. There is the main mountain, but on it there are still ups and downs, smaller rises, and drops. This is how it works in the body and the nervous system. The condition doesn't just switch off. It changes levels. This also made me realize that I've lived in this state most of my life. The intensity changed over time, but the underlying pattern was there. And this is likely true for many people, even if they don't recognize it. What brought this into focus today was a small situation. I went for a walk in the morning and noticed some people in a park picking flowers from a tree. I was simply curious what they were using them for, especially because I've been interested lately in making small herbal remedies. While I was walking, I felt fine in myself. I felt present and calm. But the moment I approached them and asked a simple question, a strong wave of anxiety hit my body. I tried to smile, but the smile felt tense, almost electric. I noticed it immediately and felt embarrassed. I'm sure they could feel that charge too. They were not charged people. They were calm, normal, neutral. If I hadn't been in that state, it could have been a pleasant, short conversation. Instead, my body reacted on its own, and that was disturbing to witness. This reaction reminded me of how I used to be as a teenager and earlier in life. I carried this charge all the time. I covered it with forced positivity, fast movement, and being constantly on. It helped me survive and function, but it never felt natural. I was always aware that my presence was too intense, that it could throw people off balance. I knew it, but I couldn't change it. I didn't know how. The same thing is happening now. The charge that has been built up over a long period of time is stored in the body, and now its effects are visible. What's interesting is that when I'm alone, I can feel quite good and grounded. But the moment I come into contact with other people, the charge activates again. Because of this, I probably avoided people a lot in my life. I sensed that part of what was happening was coming from me. Of course, there were situations where I clearly knew something wasn't mine and I was being affected by others. But in many cases, I could feel that I was part of it too. I knew it, but I didn't know what to do about it. When you can't change something in your body or nervous system, you start to turn it against yourself. You begin to belittle yourself or try to make yourself smaller, calmer, less charged. But it doesn't work. You can't force your system to switch off. It also depends on the person and the environment you're in, and on what form of narcissistic abuse syndrome you're experiencing at that time. I've gone through phases where I was completely numb. I couldn't connect to anyone. It felt like being underwater, like being inside a tank where voices reach you but don't fully register. In my case, that was a more severe version of the syndrome. But the version where I'm highly charged has been with me most of my life. Constant activation. Constant intensity. A feeling that my presence is too strong, even when my intention is gentle. I've always felt embarrassed by this, and I know I've carried that embarrassment for a long time. So you try to cover it up. You tell yourself, this isn't me. My intention is different. And it is different, but the body doesn't reflect that. The charge speaks louder than intention. I'm sharing this because I think it really helps explain narcissism and unconscious dynamics more clearly. Especially now, after recent attacks, I see things much more sharply. What feels tragic is that my own body has been hijacked. My reactions, my expressions, even my thoughts feel like they've been taken over and used against me. That charge creates disconnection, from people in general, and even from my partner. And it's painful, because the relationship itself is good. It feels like if this charge keeps being reinforced and I can't clear it, it could destroy something that is actually healthy and loving. That realization is terrifying. For now, I feel like I need to leave the environment I'm in. I've done that before, but often in a destructive way, spending money I should have saved, just to escape long enough to feel human again. Sometimes leaving feels like the only way not to become completely numb, not to turn into a zombie. So I remove myself for a short time, go somewhere psychologically safer, and then come back slightly stronger. Because at this point, very small things can shut me down for a long time. That's how fragile the system becomes. Everything about this is tragic. It's everywhere. It's hard to escape, and most people are inside it without realizing it. I don't want to be part of it, yet I'm affected by it constantly. And now I can see something difficult but important. I'm not only affected by distortion, I can also become a source of distortion when my system is overloaded. That realization is painful, but it's also clarifying. I don't want to pass the charge on to others, but sometimes I do. It's not a choice. It's not something I agree to. It's simply in my body. I can't switch it off by will. I know I talk about the same things repeatedly, but there's a reason for that. These realizations matter. They're important to name, even if only as a record. Because in a month, I might forget this clarity again. Memory loss often protects us from being constantly re-traumatized, but forgetting doesn't mean the experience disappears. It stays in the body. The charge remains, even when the story fades. So this needs to be said and recorded, not to dwell in it, but to acknowledge what is actually happening beneath the surface. Thank you for listening. Take care, and see you next time.